What's going on, guys? The NHL playoffs kick off in just over a week. So, with that in mind, let's get into a couple teams that could really use a deep postseason run this year. Starting off with the most obvious one, the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Maple Leafs, there's going to be some big, deep, and long looks in the mirror if the Maple Leafs once again lose in the first round or even lose in the second round. Mitch Marner and John Tavares are unrestricted free agents. Mitch Marner is probably the bigger and more notable player just because he's younger and he's been more of a staple to that core four. If the Maple Leafs cannot get it done once again in the first or second round, or at least show that they can get on a deep postseason run, which in my mind is at least the Eastern Conference Finals, you'd have to imagine that Shanahan is going to be out as president. And again, we're going to see some changes with this core just in general. I don't think you could run back the core four once again going into next year. Another team as well is the Winnipeg Jets. The Winnipeg Jets last had a deep postseason run in 2018, and last year they had a really poor showing in the first round versus Colorado Avalanche. The real star of that show that was essentially a dumpster fire was Connor Hellebuyck, who was really poor in that postseason showing. He's had a really good regular season this year. He's going to win the Vezina. Will probably get Hart votes. I personally would have him getting Hart votes. He's at least in my top three. So for the Jets this year, they've had another really solid regular season, but I think fans are really hoping that this team can go on a deep postseason run. I think it's going to be good for the fans. It's going to be good for the team. And I think we all want to see Connor Hellebuyck take this Jets team on a deep playoff run. They really don't have excuse. They have the defense. They obviously have the goaltending, and they have the forward and the center depth that I would envision a Stanley Cup contender being. Pardon me. So the Winnipeg Jets are certainly a team that I would hope can go on a deep postseason run this year. Next up, the LA Kings. If the LA Kings lose to the Oilers again for the fourth straight year, especially with this Oilers team where Connor McDavid and Draisaitl are playing really well, but they're both dinged up. You have Matthias Ekholm, who's now going to be missing the postseason. For the Edmonton Oilers to beat the LA Kings, I think Rob Blake has to be fired at that point as general manager of the LA Kings. The LA Kings, they've been able to make the postseason, as mentioned. They've made it the last 4 straight years, but we need to see more progress with the Kings, and I think the Kings going on a deep playoff run, or at least putting up a good fight in the second round and potentially bowing out in 6 or 7 games, I think will at least make fans feel a little bit better about the direction of the franchise. But if they lose again for the fourth straight year to the Edmonton Oilers, I think people are going to get a little restless and wonder what is the ceiling for this team. If is it just a first round exit team, or at the bare minimum just a playoff team. And last but not least, the Carolina Hurricanes. This was more of a down year that I penciled them in for. I still had them in the playoffs, but I didn't think that they were going to be Stanley Cup contender. But for a team that has consistently been playing quite poor in the Eastern Conference Finals, if the Carolina Hurricanes, I think the Carolina Hurricanes really could use a competitive Eastern Conference Finals where they're at least winning 2 or 3 games. They don't need to win the Stanley Cup this year. They don't need to make the Stanley Cup final. But I think for the Carolina Hurricanes and their fans, at least winning a couple of games in the Eastern Conference final would go a long way at the end of this postseason.